I think we're forgetting just how good Fernando Tatis Jr. is. And I think we're forgetting just how big, or neglecting to think about just how big an impact he can have on the San Diego Padres. If you remember, Fernando Tatis Jr. missed all of last season, right? He had the wrist injury, then he was suspended for PEDs, and he's still working off the end of that PED suspension right now. He's eligible to come back if everything holds up right weather-wise. He's eligible to come back April 20th. So he's nearing a return here for the Padres. He's been rehabbing AAA El Paso recently. In just his second game of rehab, he hit his first AAA home run of the season. If you're watching this on video, you're going to see it. If you're listening to this on the audio version of the podcast, you're going to hear it. This ball by Tatis, his second rehab game, was absolutely crushed.
J-Rod never went through Tacoma. They got gypped. The 2-2 is swung on and driven high and deep. That is way gone. Way out to left, and Tatis homers to the clubhouses. Fernando Tatis Jr. with his first home run in a long time. And that home run makes it a 3-run game. It's Sacramento 5 and El Paso 2. That was crushed by Tatis, who has his trademark hop before touching third base, and the boos rain down as he touches home plate and points toward the sky.
He's homering for El Paso against Sacramento. The video came there courtesy of El Paso's Twitter feed there, I believe. So thank you to them for that. But that ball was crushed, right? That's up and in. That's a fastball that he just deposited left field over the high wall there in Sacramento. Fernando Tatis Jr. is a stud. And I saw Ben Verlander, who of the Flipping Bats podcast, Justin Verlander's brother, who I think does a great job, both as a podcaster and just as an ambassador for the game. He tweeted the home run and then said something to the effect of, he's coming, like with excitement level that Tatis Jr. was coming back. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch Fernando Tatis Jr.'s return for a few different reasons. Number one, Fernando Tatis Jr. has kind of been out of sight, out of mind. At least for me, and I assume for a lot of you as well. He hasn't played since 2021. The baseball world moved on in 2022. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch him play again and get reminded of just how good he is. I think we're forgetting just how good he is. The San Diego Padres are a World Series contender this year. They have spent a gazillion dollars to become a World Series contender. Now, they didn't get Aaron Judge this offseason. They didn't get Trey Turner this offseason, but they are bringing back here for 140 games one of the best young players in baseball, a guy that made his debut at the age of 20 and immediately hit 22 home runs in just 84 games. In the COVID season of 2020, he played 59 games and hit 17 home runs. In 2021, he hit a league best 42 home runs. And he also stole 25 bases that year in 2021. He is the rare combination of power and speed, the perfect kind of athlete that baseball wants to show off here. As baseball changes the rules and baseball gets more exciting and has more action, Fernando Tatis Jr. is the kind of guy that can make a huge impact on the sport, and he can make a huge impact on the Padres. The San Diego Padres are a World Series contender, and they are adding among the best possible pieces that you can add. Since the last time we saw Tatis Jr. on the field for San Diego, they've been to the NLCS in 2022. They've added Xander Bogaerts. They've added Juan Soto. So the Padres team that got to the playoffs 2 of 3 years with Tatis Jr. is now, or not 2 of 3. They got to the playoffs once with Tatis Jr., I believe, and now have gone to the NLCS since then last year. They are better than they were last year by virtue of getting Bogaerts and now by bringing in Tatis Jr. again. I think we are underselling or under-remembering just how good this guy is. I mean, he's 24 years old. He just turned 24. Right? Before there was Julio Rodriguez, before there was Anthony Volpe, there was Fernando Tatis Jr. This guy was on the cover of MLB The Show. He is a superstar. He was in the face of baseball conversation. Everybody loved this guy, and now the Padres are getting him back for nearly the entire season. The Padres are a World Series contender, and they are bringing back a guy with a rare combination of power and speed. And for me, he's been so out of sight, out of mind. It wasn't until I saw that video that you just watched or you just heard that I was like, damn, the Padres are going to be even more loaded than we thought. It's going to be fascinating to see just how he comes in and how he contributes and how high that ceiling gets for the Padres as they try to chase down the Dodgers in the NL West. I mean, the Padres with Tatis and with Soto for a full year and with Bogarts, they very well might have the best lineup in the league. They very well might have the deepest lineup in the league. Blue Jays lineup is loaded. Braves lineup is loaded. None of them might be more loaded than the Padres with Fernando Tatis Jr. It's going to be fun all summer to watch what this offense can be, to watch what this team can be, and to see if, for all the penny pinching that goes on in baseball, if the big spending Padres now can break down the door and win their first World Series. It's going to be fun to watch. But I also think it's going to be fascinating to watch how Fernando Tatis Jr. is welcomed back. How is he welcomed back to his clubhouse? How is he welcomed back by his manager? And how is he welcomed back to baseball as a whole? I'll start with the clubhouse. Do these guys look at Fernando Tatis Jr. as, some of them, a guy who they grew up in the minor leagues with, playing with, and they're good friends and they're happy to have him back? Do they look at him as that missing piece, like, hey, we didn't get Turner, hey, we didn't get Judge, but we've got Tatis? Do they look at him as the ace in the hole and they're excited to get him back to try to chase that World Series? Or does that clubhouse look at him as the guy who let them down a year ago and who wasn't there for them as they tried to win the World Series last year? Because that's a Padres team last year that came up a few games short of getting to the World Series, that lost in the NLCS against the Phillies. If they had Fernando Tatis Jr. there, would they have won it? Maybe. Do his teammates look at him as the guy that let them down and wasn't there when they needed him? It's wholly possible. It's certainly possible they look at him with excitement. They forgive and forget. They look at him as the missing piece. That is possible. It's also possible they look at him as the guy that wasn't there when they needed him. And his manager, Bob Melvin, last year was critical of him when the PED news came out, that he let people down. How does Bob Melvin feel about him? And then, as far as baseball as a whole, the sport has tried really hard to rid itself of PED users. The sport has tried really hard to level the playing field. We've got a balanced schedule now. We're trying to level the playing field. We're trying really hard to make this game equitable for the people playing it. And here's a guy that went out and broke the rules. How do other players feel about him? Again, how do his teammates feel about him? That is a storyline to watch. Is he welcomed back as a hero of baseball? One of the brightest young stars in the game? Or is he welcomed back as a guy who's got a lot of fences to mend and a lot of things to repair? We will wait and see. I believe the fans will get over this. There are going to be some hardline fans that don't like cheaters. We don't want cheaters in our sport. There will be those people. But by and large, scandal now gets glossed over among fans. Right? Nelson Cruz is a celebrated slugger on these Padres. Would you even remember that he was busted for PEDs? Probably not. Robinson Cano has been busted twice and been given jobs. He was a decorated member of the Dominican Republic's WBC team. So you can overcome PED suspension now under Major League Baseball, or under the, as a fan of Major League Baseball. You can get away with that in the eyes of the fans. The fans will forgive. There will be some hardliners. There will be some people in opposing stadiums. But by and large, people will continue to love Fernando Tatis Jr. in the way they love Nelson Cruz and the way they love Robinson Cano. And there are other people. D. Gordon was suspended for PEDs. I know D's not really around anymore, but you never would have remembered that. People will gloss over this for Fernando Tatis Jr. The Houston Astros seem to be the ones that maintain the villain ship, but PED users don't. So I think Tatis will be fine with the fans, less fine potentially with his own teammates, and less fine with other players around the league. And then finally, be fascinated to see, again, the inner workings of that Padres clubhouse from a chemistry perspective. Not so much in this point about the PED use, but just in terms of how do all the pieces fit together and does everybody remain happy? Fernando Tatis Jr. was the shortstop of the Padres at age 20, age 21. I assume he wants to be the shortstop of the Padres. Now Xander Bogaerts is the shortstop of the Padres. Is Tatis okay with that? Is he okay bouncing around to the outfield and playing multiple positions and being a DH? And then when he is in the outfield, are other guys okay to be a DH? If they put him in the infield, who are you bumping in order to do that? Is Tatis okay losing the status that comes with being the shortstop of a major league team every single day? It remains to be seen. We have seen scenarios all throughout sports, right, where teams add a stud and it just doesn't work because egos and personalities clash. I tend to think Fernando Tatis Jr. will be a team guy right off the bat and say the right things, and I made a mistake and I'm here to do whatever the team needs. But if we get to August, is he going to be okay not being the shortstop of a team? The job that was his, the job that should have been his for 15 years, is he going to be okay not having that? Is he going to be happy bouncing around the field and playing in the outfield? And then, are the guys going to be okay getting bounced for him? I don't know. But I do know this. Fernando Tatis is really good. I think we've forgotten how good he is. And we'll see just what an impact he can make on the World Series contending San Diego Padres.